Do you struggle to practice your English speaking skills? Not everybody has access to English speakers with whom they can practice speaking English. Maybe you're a little bit shy and you lack confidence speaking English publicly. And perhaps you don't have the spare money to spend on expensive conversation classes with somebody like me, although I do try and make my classes as accessible as possible. The good news is that you can practice speaking English completely on your own, in the privacy of your own home. And even better, most of my suggestions today are completely free. The tips I'm going to share today come from a variety of sources. I've used some of them myself when I've been learning my second language, Spanish. But these tips also come from some of my English students who've shared with me little tips and tricks of things that they do on a daily basis to improve their spoken English. By the way, I'm Jo, and if we haven't met before, I work with people who want to improve their confidence speaking English as a second plus language. I make videos here on YouTube twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays usually, but you can also find my lessons on my website. I'll put a link below. If you find my videos useful, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. So let's get started looking at some of those tips for practicing speaking English on your own. Tip 1 is shadowing. Shadowing is when you imitate English speakers. I suggest that here on YouTube you find a short video of somebody speaking English, somebody ideally who you respect and who you like the sound of. Also, make sure this person is speaking about something you're actually interested in. You're going to be imitating this person, so make sure you have something in common with them. For example, I wouldn't choose to shadow Elon Musk. We don't have a huge amount in common. If I was going to choose somebody to shadow, I would choose somebody like Olivia Colman or Emma Thompson. So you need to find a short video or audio clip of them speaking, and then you need to listen really, really carefully. Listen to their pronunciation, their intonation, and the rhythm of their speech. I think it's also really useful to look at their faces and to see what their faces are doing as they speak. Then, sentence by sentence, imitate or mimic exactly what they're saying. Shadowing like this allows you to get a natural feel for the flow of the language. Now, this doesn't have to be particularly time-consuming. If you gradually work through a TED Talk or something like that, you could break it down into small chunks and work on something for 3 to 5 minutes every day. Give it a try and see how you get on. Or if you've used the shadowing technique before, tell me in the comments who you've tried shadowing and whether you found this a useful way of improving your English speaking skills. The second tip I've got for you today is something that I've practiced with some of my students, and that's recording yourself. I think the best way to do this is to make it a regular habit, preferably a daily habit. Some of my students will record a journal on a daily basis. And that journal entry will consist of them speaking about something that interests them for a couple of minutes every day. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes. The only person listening to this back will be you. And when you do listen back, you might be able to identify some of those mistakes, which will help you to learn. I love this technique because I think it's also a really good way of recording your progress. You can listen back to yourself speaking a few months ago and notice how your English has improved. The next tip, and this is something that I've used myself, is to use technology to practice your English speaking skills. There are apps like Babbel and Duolingo where you can practice speaking English. and you can get immediate feedback, albeit from technology and not from a human being. There are also apps like Hello Talk where you can connect with other English speakers through voice messaging. And then, of course, there's ChatGPT. I've used ChatGPT myself to practice speaking my second language, and it's so good that it's a little bit scary. First of all, you need to download the ChatGPT app onto your phone. And when you log in, you'll find a little icon, a picture of a pair of headphones. And when you press this pair of headphones, it opens a microphone on your phone and you can speak to ChatGPT. As with any sort of generative AI, it's the quality of the input, the prompts that you give, that determine the quality of the output, the response you get. So put a little bit of thought into your prompt, the information that you give ChatGPT. You could say something like, "Hello ChatGPT." I always say hello first. It's polite. "Hello ChatGPT. I want to practice my English conversation skills. My level of English is a B1 level, but I'm aiming towards B2. Today I'd like to talk about summer holidays. Could you initiate a conversation with me, listen to my answers and make corrections?" And before you know it, you'll be having a conversation in English. The best bit about this, I think, is there's zero fear of judgment. When I speak Spanish to ChatGPT, it doesn't matter how bad my Spanish is. I can do it kind of completely in an uninhibited sort of way. It's not as fun, obviously, as speaking to a real life person, but it's a really good tool. And like I said, it's completely free. The next tip is to think or speak out loud in English intentionally every day, narrating what you're doing or what you're thinking, but just making sure that you're putting it into English. You could describe to yourself what you're doing or how you're feeling, or what your plan is for the rest of the day. Gradually, this will help you form sentences more quickly and naturally. I think with this kind of habit and introducing this kind of habit, it's a good idea to set aside a particular time every day that you're going to do it. I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits, but it talks about habit stacking, where you attach a new habit to an existing habit. Maybe your existing habit is every morning you make a cup of coffee and sit down and read the news headlines. You can attach another habit on top of that. Now, this is easier said than done because some of us, I know me certainly, work to quite a tight deadline, especially in the mornings. But if you can accommodate this new habit over a period of a month, it will become second nature. You could make that coffee, sit down, scan the news headlines, and then run through what your plans are for that day in English, ideally speaking out loud. Which brings us on to this topic of reading aloud. Now, one of my students has got into the habit of reading aloud to her son in English every single evening. She's got a small library of English children's books, and she encourages her son to choose a book and they share it together. And I think it's even got to the point where he will read some of the story to her. Now, obviously, you don't need a small child to be able to read out loud. You could be maybe enjoying an English short story, and you could try speaking some of that out loud. Again, you could kind of cross some of these tips. You could record yourself reading out loud. In my English conversation classes, often a student and I will look at an article that I think they might be interested in, and I'll encourage them to read a section of the article out loud to me. Focus on the clarity of your speech and maybe the emotion and the tone as well of whatever you're reading. I'm sure lots of you have got your own tips and tricks for practicing speaking English on your own. So if you have, could you share them in the comments? And if you found today's video useful, it would be great if you could give it a thumbs up, and even better, subscribe. And if you do want to practice your English speaking skills with a real life person, then have a look at my website and you can find out how to book a trial conversation class with me. Take care for now, and I'll see you next time.